This is a topic that the Bible speaks of, and it's always a good occasion when we come to this time of year to be able to be reminded of some of the things that the Bible talks about concerning mothers. And so that's what we're going to be doing this morning, but I wanted to talk about it from this perspective of giving mom flowers. And the reason that this stuck out in my mind is many, many years ago, there was a lady we knew in Alabama that we had it wasn't a pleasurable occasion, but we did have many occasions where we were at funerals together. And often at the funeral, you'll go during the visitation and you'll admire all the flowers that were there, that were given for the family to give them comfort during that time. And she always made the statement that I don't want flowers after I die. Give me flowers while I'm still alive. And I heard some amens. That's why we're giving the lesson this morning. Because that is a sentiment that is true. And when we talk about our mothers, it is something that we're mindful of. And especially over the past several months and this year, we've had occasions where some have had to say goodbye to their mother in this world. And knowing that they're not going to be able to have another occasion to give their mom flowers and to tell her thank you, or that they love her, or they appreciate her, and just to say that we have been blessed by having you. And so that's one of the things that we need to think about as we have time in this life. And it doesn't just pertain to mothers, but it pertains to all of us, that we need to make sure that we recognize that even time itself is a gift that's been given to us by God. It's by His grace and His mercy that we have this particular moment of time. And that the time that we have now is the only time that we have available to us to redeem, to make the full use of. And to make it for the purposes of honoring something that God has given to us and blessed us with is a very special thing, and one that we should take advantage of each and every time that we might have. And so if you're ready for your 3 words this morning, our tradition is to hold up your notebooks high. So let me see your notebooks. Very good. Your 3 words are from verse 28 of Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31 and verse 28. Call her blessed. Those are your 3 words. Call her blessed. This is something that she's supposed to hear, these worthy women, this godly mother, this excellent wife, that she should be called blessed. It's something that she should hear, as it says in these verses, from her children, from her husband, and even in the city gates, that she should be recognized as being blessed. Give your mother flowers while you have that opportunity to give them to her, and let her be called a blessed woman. And so when we talk about giving flowers, I think some of the ways in which we should do that is openly. And as we said a moment ago, with the words that are used here in Proverbs 31, it talks about speaking to her and telling her that she is a blessed woman from her children and from her husband, and even in the city gates. They need to hear that. And not only do they need to hear that, but as husbands, when we speak to our wives and we declare openly the love that we have for our wives, it's something that's very precious to them. It's something that's very important. And it's important for our children to hear us as husbands telling our wives how much we love them, how much we appreciate them, and how thankful we are for them. There's been a lot of different studies that's been conducted on this particular subject, and women in particular, when it comes to words and words being spoken to them of appreciation, are things they hold in great value, and warmth and affection are attached to them. The children hearing those things, it makes it easier for them to express those ideas, not just to their own mother, but also when they go out and they start speaking to other people as well, having that graciousness that's upon their tongues. But not just when it comes to words, but also in some of the deeds that we have. 1 John 3:18 tells us that, my little children, let us not love in word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. That our mothers need and our wives need to be hugged. When's the last time you gave her a hug that she didn't actually ask for? That's something that maybe when you were small, a toddler, you gave all the time. You loved sitting in mother's lap or Meemaw's lap. But as you got older, maybe that's something that she had to actually ask for before you gave it. And I tell you, that's something that would be worth more to her than flowers, than eating out at lunch, than diamond jewelry. Well, lunch and so when you think about giving these things, it is so very precious, because those are the things that they remember. And those are the things by which we show affection in more than just speaking about it. That it shows that we're actually willing to make a sacrifice, willing to take an effort, willing to take into thought someone else's emotions and someone else's needs. And as John is applying it here, he's not applying it to mothers. He's applying it to Christians, that this is the way that we're supposed to be with one another. And when the Bible talks about greeting one another with a holy kiss, when it talks about extending the right hand of fellowship, all these physical actions that are meant to convey emotion and comfort are important. And again, do it while you have that opportunity, because some people don't have those anymore. It may also be that they didn't have a mother that was a godly mother, that maybe they didn't spend time with their children. And how much would a person long to have someone in their life now that they could show that kind of affection for as a mother? We talked a few weeks ago about us being a family and how the church is indeed a family. There are a lot of women in this congregation that you may not have your own physical children, but never think that you're not a godly example of what a godly woman and a godly mother should be to these children that you teach in Bible class, and the one that you show affection for and guidance to as they run up and down the hallways, or that you see them in this congregation. They hear you singing and see the things that you do, that you are that kind of example to them. And I've got to tell you, from raising my kids among brethren, that's been something I've been very thankful for, because there's been a lot of really godly mother-type examples that they've had amongst them throughout the years that I am so very grateful for. But they need to hear that, and they need to know it from us very personally and on a very personal level. We need to be attentively giving our mom flowers as well. Sometimes it's going to take a lot of patience. In 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 14, it tells us that we are to exhort. He tells them, we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly. And most of the time when we turn to this passage, that's the part that we're looking at, is that unruly part. However, it also encourages in this very same verse to comfort those, or comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak, and be patient with all. Sometimes this may be our mothers. Our mothers are the ones that were very attentive to our needs. They were the ones who were always there, as I said a moment ago, to show affection and show how much they love you, and they were attentive to what you need. You remember that as a child, probably the most terrifying sight to you when you were very, very young was your mother licking her thumb and coming at you, because you knew what that meant. You meant that there was a smudge on your face that she was going to deal with, and she was going to deal with it openly because she was attentive to the needs that you have. Jeff Foxworthy said that with a spit of a mother and a rag, you could get the rust off of a car bumper because that's what they use for everything. And it's true that even as adults, some of us men know we have wives that are not ashamed to do that to us as well, even now, because they are attentive to our needs. As she grows older, and as maybe her memory starts to fade, and as she becomes maybe infirmed with age and its limitations, and maybe she has to ask you to repeat things, or maybe she forgets things and wants you to tell it to her the third, fourth, or fifth time, much like you did when you were a child. Be patient with her. Be attentive to her needs, and know that the same care that she showed for you as a child, that this is her due, that we be patient with her as well, and that we comfort her as we should and as she is deserving of. You know, when our mothers are trying to deal with the schedules around the house, it's easy to become impatient and to think that there's things that ought to be done on the schedule that we would want them done in, that maybe supper was not always ready when we wanted it to be ready, or maybe we went into the pantry and we were out of our favorite cookies or whatever else it may have been, and we became impatient with our mother. And oftentimes children, especially in the teenage years, can become impatient with the mother because they need to be somewhere at a certain time, when actually it's a lack of planning on the teen's part and letting the mother know about things. And then the mother's all a panic and trying to make sure it gets done as quickly as she can. We need to be patient with our mothers, because for her that is something that is unreal, the amount of pressure that she has, the amount of work that she puts in without pay. And she's always been tender to your needs. So don't take advantage of her, but appreciate her for those things. In Ephesians 4 and verse 2, we're reminded that with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love, that when we have our mothers, as they do start to get older, that we need to be, as it talks about here, to be long-suffering, to be gentle, to be in lowliness, and to bear with one another, because those are the last moments you're going to have. So hold them in high regard as being precious times, and knowing that those are running out, and knowing that one day you're going to look back and wish that you had at least one more occasion to go through those things again, because you won't always have them, and you will long for them. Timothy tells us, or Paul tells Timothy rather, in 1 Timothy 5 and verse 4, that if any widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show piety at home and to repay their parents, for this is good and acceptable before God. That word piety is interesting that it's being used there, because the word piety is usually talking about something of a religious devotion and a reverence to God. But here is talking about, in this occurrence, about faithfulness in performing a person's responsibilities toward their parents, and knowing that this is your duty and your obligation to not put this off on someone else, to not put it off on the church as it's talking about here, but that you take responsibility for this, because this is piety. This is righteousness. This is godliness. This is fulfilling your God-given role that you have as a child toward her. Again, how many would long for another occasion to be able to be with their mother just one more time, and to be able to show this type of love for her? So let's do it gratefully as well, being thankful for the time that we have. There's an interesting passage in Ruth chapter 2, verse 12, where Boaz is speaking to Ruth, and he says, "The Lord repay your work and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." And when he's saying this, he's talking about all that she had done for her mother-in-law after the death of her husband, that she had left behind her family and her native land, and she had dwelt among strangers. And there are many who need to realize that right now you are living the best days of your life when it comes to having your mother. And one day she's going to be in a situation where maybe she has lost her husband, that she's going to be a widow, and that there's a lot of things that she's done in her life, and you as a daughter or daughter-in-law, son-in-law, can be there for her, to offer her thanks for all that she has done, and to praise her because she has done something that God himself even sees and witnesses. And how difficult a time that must have been and may be for them to have to go through those days. The empty bedroom that used to be filled with your father. The empty bedroom that may have been filled with one of your siblings. To know loneliness that she has never felt in her life before. We need to be grateful for all that she has done and all that she has been through. In Luke 17, verses 11 through 19, just to give you a summary of what's there, when you turn to that passage, you see what's happening, that there's these lepers, these 10 lepers, and that Jesus heals them. And he does something great for them, and they all enjoy this blessing from God. And no doubt these people who were lepers are extremely thankful for what the Lord has done. The Lord's instruction to them was to go and show themselves that they had been cleansed from their leprosy. And so they go about doing that. But one of them takes thought to come back to Jesus and to actually thank him. Jesus didn't command them to come to him and thank him for what he had done. He had cured them. He had healed them. No doubt it gave Jesus joy in doing this. He sent them forward on their journey to do the thing that was right in accordance with God. But his point is this, is that there was one person who actually thought about it enough to say thank you. And that's the kind of people that we ought to be. It ought not be that we have to tell one another to say thank you, to be grateful. When we're children, we're taught that from a very young age to say thank you, and express gratitude for something that someone has done. But the reason we do that is so that when we become older, we have a consciousness of what has taken place and what has happened. Our mothers, our wives, they need to hear that gratefulness, that thankfulness, because God has blessed us with them. There's no one so unique in the home as the mother. The father is indeed the one who is the head of the household, but it's been said that the mother is the heart of the household, because she is the one that binds it together with that special kind of love and affection that only she can provide. As Charlie prayed this morning, expressing that special way in which the woman was created by our great and merciful God. And the thing that she brings to the household cannot be brought by anyone else, because that's the way that she was created. And to tell her thank you for all that she has done, and to hear those actual words from our lips. In Acts 20 and verse 35, I think a lot of women understand this, that as Paul said, I've shown you in every way by laboring like this that you must support the weak. And remember the words of the Lord Jesus that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. There's probably no one else in a household that understands what that more blessed to give than to receive than our mothers understand, because she gives so much. She gives of her time. She gives of her energies. There are women who work outside the home and do not neglect their obligations within the home. And they're the ones in the middle of the night who are getting up with the kids when they're sick, and when there's the least little sound that they make when they're small, they're the ones who immediately respond to those things. For us dads, it becomes a little bit easier because hey, did you hear that? When most of the time she's the one who takes care of that, because many times she's the only one who can. When you were young, you knew who it was that you would go to when you were sick, when you were feeling bad. For most, it was the mother, because she was the one who gave that sympathetic and caring ear. And she understood this saying, it is more blessed to give than to receive. She did that because of the way that God created her, and that was her role. When the Bible talks about in Timothy about not having natural affection, the term that is being used there is talking about the natural affection that exists between a mother and that child. That is something that is innate, because she has grown, literally grown another human being within her body. And that there's a very special connection. She is the first one who has touched that child. She's the first one who has cared for that child. And now she needs to be thanked for those things. So let's make sure that we honor her gratefully, and also that we do it with tremendous honor. Two passages I want us to look at side by side is Ephesians 6:1 and also Exodus 20 and verse 12. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Exodus 20 and verse 12, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which your Lord your God is giving you. You know, there's a difference between the words obey and honor. And it is indeed that when we talk about obeying, that's something that would be binding within a home, but honoring is something that extends well beyond the home. That we always are supposed to be providing honor to our parents. And there may be a day, even as we learned in our class this morning, that there's limits to the realm that we have to obey or submit to someone else's authority. And that may end when you leave the home, but honor does not. That extends well beyond it. And so when we talk about our parents, and in particular today as we're emphasizing mother, that you honor her. It's not right. It's not right when you have teenagers who are talking better about their friends than they do about their mother. Or they talk better about their friend's mother than they do their own mother. That they show more respect to people in the world and society and their friends and their households than they do their own parents. That's not right. And that's not the way that God intended. It's a lesson that we're supposed to learn from a very early age, from a very young place in our life, that by submitting to them and really honoring them, to really understand what has been done for you in that household, how you were provided for and looked after, and to give her the honor that is due her. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. She is even praised in the city gates because her own hands have shown the fruitfulness of her labors. Call her blessed and give her the honor that she is due. I came upon this slide this week that I thought was fitting. It says that a mother holds her children's hands for a while, but their hearts forever. And I think that's a true statement. As I said, there may be many who do not have the blessing of having their mothers with them, or having the blessing of having a godly mother in your life. But this is a day where you're surrounded by a lot of good, godly women. I've been part of this congregation for about 14 years. Some of the godliest women I've ever met in my life are parts of this congregation, and they're deserving of honor, whether they be an actual mother or not. So give them their flowers while you have the chance to give it to them. So that is a question I'm going to leave with you, is have you given your mom her flowers? If not, Walmart has some, Tom Thumb has some, but more importantly, give her the honor and the praise that she is due. God gave her a task, and if your mother's fulfilling those tasks, God bless her, because it is one that is deeply meaningful and requires so much effort. And she does it because she loves you, and more importantly, because she loves the Lord. If you're subject to the invitation this morning, if you want to be a child of God so that you might be part of the family of God, that you might enjoy the blessings that we've been talking about this morning by having a family of people who surround you with encouragement and strength, if you want to be a Christian this morning because you've come to the understanding that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and that He died for you and He showed you the love that no one else could show, that He was willing to accept you into His family as adopted children. If you need to make things right, either between you and God or you and someone else, if there's something that we can help you with this morning, please let us know. As together we stand and sing, please come if we can help.